The conference hall was full of polished shoes, expensive watches, and carefully measured laughter, the kind of laughter that never reached the eyes. CEOs, investors, and directors had gathered for yet another night of glittering charity dinners where promises were made and forgotten, where handshakes carried more weight than words. At the far end of the table sat Alexander Grant, a man whose reputation preceded him. Cold, brilliant, alone. The world called him ruthless, but those who dared to get close enough knew he was simply a broken bar, empty. Alexander had built an empire brick by brick, deal by deal, loss by loss. He had no family to attend galas with, no warm hand to hold under the table, no daughter to run up to him when the evening was over. The tabloids called him the lonely king of steel, powerful, rich beyond measure, but with eyes that betrayed the hollowness of a man who had conquered everything except his own loneliness. But that night, something shattered the ice fortress he had built around himself, because as he stepped outside for air, his perfectly polished shoes crunching against the gravel of the hotel's courtyard, he heard it. Not the shallow laughter of men, not the clinking of champagne glasses, but the sound of a little girl sobbing in the shadows. It was raw, terrified, desperate. Alexander froze, his pulse quickening. The sound seemed out of place, like a haunting note in a symphony of lies. He followed it, turning past the decorative hedges until he saw her, a little girl no more than 7 or 8, curled against the cold stone steps, clutching a tattered stuffed rabbit so tightly it seemed the only anchor keeping her in this world. Her face was streaked with tears, her small shoulders shaking. When she saw him, her eyes widened in pure terror. Please don't let him find me," she whispered hoarsely, her voice trembling. "He'll kill Mommy." Broken bar. The words slammed into Alexander like a punch to the chest. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The girl's voice, so fragile yet so broken, carried a truth heavier than any business deal, any financial empire. It was fear, a real fear that no child should carry. He knelt slowly, careful not to scare her. "Hey," he said softly, his voice lower than he'd used in years. "No one's going to hurt you. You're safe with me." But she shook her head violently, clutching her stuffed rabbit tighter. "No one can help us. He'll find us. He always finds USA." Broken bar. Alexander felt something stir in him, something he hadn't felt since he buried his parents as a young man, something he had buried beneath contracts, skyscrapers, and endless boredom battles. Compassion. That night would mark the beginning of a story he never thought would be written in his life. A story of a broken little girl, a desperate mother, and a lonely CEO who would discover that sometimes, saving someone else is the only way to save yourself. And before this story ends, you the viewer will understand why this one night, this one sobbing plea of a child, would change Alexander Grant's life forever. Alexander looked at her again, really looked, and for the first time in years, the mask he wore for the world began to crack. He saw not just a frightened child but a reflection of something he once was: small, powerless, trapped in a life shaped by the choices of others. His own childhood memories, the cold nights without comfort, the silent cries no one heard, flooded his chest. He swallowed hard, his throat tightening with an ache he had forgotten existed. The girl's hands trembled as she clutched the stuffed rabbit. It was frayed, its ear half torn, yet she held it like treasure. That toy had survived with her, perhaps through nights filled with shouting, through moments where doors slammed and glass shattered. She held it the way children hold on to hope when everything else threatens to break. Alexander extended his hand carefully, but the girl flinched back, pressing herself against the stone steps as though bracing for punishment. His hand froze midair, the rejection stabbing deeper than he expected. He lowered it gently. "It's okay," he whispered. "You don't have to trust me yet. I just a broken bar. I don't want you to feel alone." The words surprised even him. They weren't the polished reassurances of a CEO used to closing deals, so they were clumsy, vulnerable, but real. The girl sniffled, her voice barely audible. "He says no one cares. He says a broken bar Mommy's useless, that a broken bar I'm nothing." Her words cut sharper than knives. Alexander's chest burned, not with anger toward her, but with a fury at whoever had planted such poison in a child's heart. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to keep calm. "Listen to me," he said firmly but gently. "You are not nothing. You matter more than you know. Whoever told you that a broken bar he's wrong, dead wrong. Her eyes flickered, a faint crack in the wall of fear around her. She stared at him, studying the sincerity in his face, as if searching for the lie she was so used to hearing. Somewhere inside, Alexander knew this was no coincidence. He wasn't supposed to be outside at that moment, wasn't supposed to hear her cries. He had walked away from the artificial glow of chandeliers and shallow applause only to find something real in the darkness, something or something that fate had placed in his path. The wind rustled the hedges, and the girl shivered. Without thinking, Alexander slipped off his tailored jacket and placed it over her small shoulders. It looked comically large, nearly swallowing her whole, but she pulled it tight around her body, and for the first time since he saw her, her sobs quieted just a little. That simple act of offering warmth felt foreign to him. In boardrooms, warmth was weakness. In negotiations, compassion was liability. But here, in the fragile silence of the night, it was the only thing that mattered. Alexander sat down on the cold stone step beside her, not too close, just near enough that she didn't feel abandoned. They stayed like that for long moments, the weight of unspoken truths pressing between them. And then, in a voice soft as a secret, she asked, "Why broken bar? Why are you helping me?" The question caught him off guard. He could have said the